Winter's almost over. A lot of us have been eager to get outside, whether that means exercising, gardening, just enjoying a longer walk. But after months of being a little less active, jumping back in too quickly can lead to some of those aches and pains, maybe even an injury or two. So joining us today to talk about how to get our bodies ready and safely ease into those spring activities is Dr. Steven Bokshan with Cone Health OrthoCare. So doctor, let's talk about this. Like, winter can make us feel a little stiff, right? We're not moving as much. How does being a little less active impact our joints and muscles?
Yeah, it's really interesting, So during the winter when things get cold, you might notice just like our car engine, when you go to start it up in the morning, it kind of trickles in a little bit and you wonder if it's going to start. And actually, believe it or not, our muscles do the exact same type of thing. Our joints are consisting of fluid, and what happens is just like a coffee that doesn't dissolve sugar quite as well when it's cold, the same exact thing happens in the joints, where these inflammatory chemicals can kind of build up in the knee and the muscles and just cause pain.
Okay, so with that said, let's talk about some of the most common springtime injuries that you see, not just like in sports, but just like in everyday activities.
Yeah, no question. I think when folks are lifting those heavier bags of mulch or getting ready for their yard work, I commonly see back issues, back and shoulder issues. And to be honest with you, a lot of it's preventable. I think a lot of what I see comes from kind of lifting ergonomics that isn't quite as ideal as it should be.
Okay, so what we're doing is we're doing it wrong. So let's talk about the ways to prevent those kinds of injuries. Maybe like warm up, our bodies before we decide to do any of those things.
Yeah, it's definitely a strange concept, but 100%, I think warming up, a stitch in time definitely saves nine. And I think the reality is that as the spring approaches, we're all excited to finish our springtime cleaning and get ready for summer. The reality is there's no rush, there's no race. And I think a well-timed stretch is a very, very important thing to warm up those sore muscles and joints.
Okay, so let's talk about the stretching, because not everybody thinks that the stretching is the same from one person to another. So what is the good kind of stretching we should do?
Yeah, it's an awesome question. I mean, the reality is it varies. I mean, I tell most folks that you're never going to have a downside to stretching the back, the core. But the reality is, I think that it's very patient specific. And I tell patients all the time, what's that nagging injury that you've had that you really want to target? For folks with shoulder issues, for example, I'll give them a good band program that they can work on in the morning. And believe it or not, there's plenty of great online resources. So I'll refer folks to a physical therapist by the name of Dr. Joe on YouTube. And she's got a great home program for just about every sore muscle, body part, joint that you can imagine.
Okay, so Dr. Joe on YouTube is what we need to look at, maybe for a few thoughts on what kind of exercises, the show and tell part. All right, a lot of folks, they start to overdo it when they're outside, but maybe they don't feel it till the next day. So what are the signs while we're doing it that, okay, we maybe need to slow down?
So muscles and joints are allowed to be sore. I think that's a really important part, that as you're warming up muscles that have kind of taken the winter off, soreness can be normal. That being said, swelling and pain are not normal. So I would say if you're getting to the point where you feel like you're having to push through something or you're forcing something that doesn't quite feel right, that's when it's time to see your friendly neighborhood orthopedist.
Okay, gotcha. So you think, I want to make sure that we get this right. You think that we obviously should be stretching before we do any of the gardening activities or cleaning out the garage, that kind of thing. Also, just every morning, like when we get up out of bed?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the most important time to stretch. Lots of folks will have something, for example, called plantar fasciitis, which is a pain in the bottom of the foot or on the heel bone. And literally what that comes from is as you're sleeping at night, your tendons become tight and they become sore. So some folks might notice the first steps they take in the morning are actually very painful. And the reason that is because of really just chronically tight muscles and tendons. And a little bit of stretching in the morning truly will go a long way. And it's honestly going to set you up for a very successful day.
And here I'm thinking we're sleeping, and so we must all be relaxed and all of our muscles are relaxed, but that is not the case.
Now, believe it or not, sleeping can actually be some of the hardest time for folks recovering from musculoskeletal injuries. I have patients with shoulder issues who say they can't lay flat or they'll need to sleep in their recliner. Folks with plantar fasciitis, sleeping at night, they'll get pain in the heel. I think it's important. I mean, if you have any questions, by all means, asking an orthopedic doc or a musculoskeletal specialist. And believe it or not, there's many different ways to sleep, and I think they need to be accommodated to whatever type of injuries you got going on.
Okay, so we talked about the physical part of it. Is there a point where diet, nutrition play a role in that kind of joint health as well?
Oh, there's no question about it. I mean, diet and nutrition are intimately related to joint health. I mean, the reality is there are anti-inflammatory diets out there that I think can tremendously help folks. If there's any questions or, if thinking, am I a candidate for an anti-inflammatory diet? I think consulting with a registered dietitian is honestly a great idea, because the reality is that the output that we get from our muscles or our bodies is really kind of directly tied to what we put in. Good fuel in equals kind of good productivity out.
So, how does age affect our joint health?
Yeah, I think with age, honestly comes just cycles on a joint. And with additional cycles, honestly, things like overuse comes into play. Things like arthritis that are common with age. Although I think it's a really important point to realize that not every person, as they get older, will develop arthritis. There's a genetic component to it, and honestly, it runs in the family a lot.
Okay, are there different things that we should do in our different life stages to protect our joints?
Yeah, I think so. I think the most important thing by far and away that folks can do are stretching, getting your joints mobile, kind of getting on an exercise bike to kind of gently warm things up. I think in general, low impact is awesome. So, while running longer distances is fine, if you can get on that exercise bike and really just introduce your joints to less force but more motion, we have the expression lotion is motion or motion is lotion when it comes to joints.
Yep, I have heard that before. All right, so if someone pulls a muscle, strains something while they're doing yard work or playing with the kids or, cleaning out the garage, what is the best way to treat it at home?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think a lot of it depends on, have you just strained a muscle, which is very common in the back. You might notice a back spasm or a neck spasm. And in general, heat is amazing for that. So heat at the end of the day, a heating pad, a hot tub, something like that to really get the muscle nice and stretched out and loose, you're going to be really grateful for. Things like a cold plunge in the morning can be super helpful just to get those joints, the inflammation levels kind of down in the body.
Okay, and of course everybody wants to treat it at home, right? They don't want to, go out to the doctor and tell them, "Oh my goodness, this is what I did," or "I can't believe I hurt myself doing this." But when is it
Yeah.
time to see a doctor instead of just treating it at home?
Yeah, I mean I think that's the $1 million question. And what I usually tell folks is, if something is stopping you from being the person that you want to be, come talk to a doc. We're not mean, we don't bite. Worst case scenario, you're just given some gentle reassurance, and you can get back out there and enjoy it. But if something's stopping you from doing that activity, that exercise that you love doing, or if you're thinking about it more days than you're not, I think it's time to see one of us.
So do we just go see our general practitioner first and then go on from there kind of thing?
Yeah, it's a great question. Your practitioner can refer you to an orthopedist, or we do have a same day walk-in clinic, for example, at the Med Center Greensboro on Drawbridge Parkway, where we take patients on a daily basis, walk in at really any time during the day.
Okay. All right. So while someone is recovering, are there things that we should not do? Things that will slow down our recovery or possibly even hurt ourselves even more?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I see this all the time. I mean, it's particularly my group of patients who kind of got to get stuff done and they can't take any time off. I think pushing past an injury or pushing past a sore muscle, it ends up putting you further back than you want to be. So I would tell you, if something is painful, don't feel like you need to push through it. To be honest, it's kind of two steps backwards to take 10 forward. Rest it, ice it, take a little bit of anti-inflammatory, and then get back after it.
Okay. All right. So for people with arthritis, past injuries, any modifications that they should consider to just increase their activity but not hurt themselves?
Yeah, I think there's lots of different options for folks with arthritis. I mean, the reality is that adjunctive things like knee sleeves, compression sleeves to help with swelling can be tremendously helpful. Some folks may take an anti-inflammatory before they begin their day, which I think is amazing. I think when in doubt, double the time you need. If you got a big project, it's okay to take a day or two extra to finish the project. I think when it comes to staying active, you don't want to rush it, and just go low and slow. There's nothing wrong with going low and slow.
I know we talked about diet and nutrition. What about hydration?
Oh, Hy- hydrate or dihydrate is the expression. Honestly, it's just your muscles, your body is predominantly fluid. And, specifically as we get to the fall here with sports picking up or summer sports picking up, I can't speak enough about hydration. I mean, North Carolina gets very hot in the summertime and even in the springtime these days. So I think it's very important to just keep yourself hydrated so that we can avoid, preventable illnesses like heat exhaustion.
Okay, we've got like a little bit less than a minute. Any final thoughts, anything you want people to make sure that they leave with about their joint health?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say at the end of the day, orthopedists and docs, and we're all here to keep people in the game. I mean, the worst thing I see is when a patient will come to me and they'll say, I've cut out X, Y, and Z because to be honest with you, it just hurts, or I feel like it's making the problem worse. And it just, a little piece of me dies inside when I hear that because our career is dedicated towards keeping you in the game or in the yard or on the pickleball court, whatever you want to do. So when
Gotcha.
in doubt, do not let your musculoskeletal injuries bully you. Just when in doubt, come get it checked out. We'll get you back in the game.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you so much for your expertise and your time. If you missed any of this, maybe you need to send it to someone who needs to hear this. It's going to be in the To Your Wellbeing section of our website.